What's up guys, my name's Brandon, and every year a new version of iOS comes out, I'm asked one question more than any other question, and that is, how can I improve my battery life on my iPhone? Or, why am I not getting as much out of my battery on the latest version of iOS, which is iOS 14 this year? So in this video, I'm gonna answer those questions and show you guys more than 30 pro tips on saving battery life and just getting the most out of your battery on iOS 14. Now, I did also make a video on how I maintain 100% battery capacity on my iPhones, and that video is more geared towards like the hardware and daily habits, whereas this video is more geared towards like software and things you can change inside the software, more specific to iOS 14. So you guys should definitely check that video out after watching this one. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into these tips that will help you save battery life on iOS 14. So the first one has to do with the all new widgets that were just introduced in iOS 14. And I'm talking about the home screen widgets, not the widgets that were always over here, the home screen widget. So you're gonna want to limit your widget usage, especially widgets that rely on the internet. So of course I have a news widget right here, and that's gonna change throughout the day based on like news articles. So it's always in the background going to be fetching for news. And of course that will eat up battery life. So you want to limit your widgets and make sure you don't have a ton of widgets that rely on pulling information from a source like the news application or, weather. Maybe it's always, pulling your information for the weather and things like that. So things like Apple TV aren't gonna be a big deal. Obviously your battery's not gonna be a big deal. Podcast, not a big deal. Most of these are fine. You just wanna make sure that you don't have a ton of widgets, like I said, that rely on pulling data from somewhere. And especially if you've customized your home screen to use like shortcuts and to change the icons and things like that, that will also eat away at battery life because you do have to run through the shortcut, and then it redirects to the actual application. And so that will also, hurt your battery in the long run as well, just because you're going through shortcuts to get to the application. So you're going to use more battery life doing that than if you just had, iOS stock and you didn't use shortcuts to open up every single application. Now, speaking of shortcuts, iOS 14 brings a new trigger to shortcuts that will let us set low power mode at a certain battery percentage. So what you guys want to do is go ahead and set up a new automation inside of the shortcuts application. Just go to the automations tab down here, click on the little plus up in the top right, create personal automation. Then you want to go all the way down to the bottom until you see battery level. Tap battery level, and then this is where you want to set the battery level to whatever battery level you want low power mode to turn on at. And you can see I have mine set to 50% right there, and I want low power mode to turn on when it falls below 50%. So I'm going to tap on that, then tap next. We're going to add action. We're going to search for low power mode. So just type in low. You should see low power mode right there. And that's pretty much it. Let's click on next right here. And then you can see we have this right here. Let's go ahead and deselect ask before running. We don't want it to, ask us and prompt us if we want to enable that. We just want it to happen automatically. So just uncheck that, click done, and boom, you're ready to go. And now low power mode will turn on automatically when your battery level goes below 50%. Now 50% is probably the maximum I would set this trigger to. You don't want low power mode to be on all the time. You want to use it, when your phone actually needs it, when you actually need it. So I would say 50% or lower is what you should probably set this at. Next up, if we go into our settings and then go down to accessibility, then go all the way down to Siri, you can see we have a couple of new options here in iOS 14. So first off, you can see here we have voice feedback, and I would recommend turning this to either only with Hey Siri or with silent mode off. I would not recommend having Siri respond to you every single time you say something to her. And then also always listen for Hey Siri. I would turn that off unless you use it all the time. Otherwise, your phone is always going to be listening for that phrase, and that could eat away at battery. And also false triggers are also bad for your battery life as well if it happens throughout the day. And speaking of Siri, if we go into our settings and go to Siri and search and then scroll down, I would recommend turning off these Siri suggestions because these have been known to drain battery life and just hurt your overall battery life. So of course, Siri suggestions are when you go here and then you swipe down to search for something, and then you just have a bunch of apps sitting up there for Siri suggestions. And then also this shows up, of course, on the lock screen when sharing and things like that as well. So unless you find great use in these Siri suggestions, which I don't personally, then I would go ahead and disable them because they will help you save some battery life. Now, another setting that will help you save even more battery life is inside of settings, general, and then down to background app refresh. So you don't want to turn this off completely. You want to keep this on because certain things will rely on this. So obviously set that to Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi and cellular data, but you want to go down here and turn off background app refresh for applications that don't absolutely need it. So this is not my main phone, but on my main phone, I have things like, obviously the Tesla app. You're going to want that to be running in the background, because you use that as your key. Other things as well, like shortcuts. You want that to be running in the background so that your shortcuts can be running, without actually having the application open. The Maps application, you want that to be running in the background so that when you're, navigating somewhere and you go into another app, it still updates in the background, and sends you the right direction. So you want to go in here and just turn off, toggle off applications that have no need or no reason to refresh in the background. So especially social media applications, I would definitely disable this because that will eat away at your battery life. So just think about the things that need to be running in the background and keep those on and turn everything else off. Now, one of the biggest battery drainers in iOS 14 and just iOS in general is email push instead of fetch. So if you go down to our settings and then go to mail and then accounts, you want to go to fetch new data right here, and you want push to be set to off. And of course, you see here it says new data will be pushed to your iPhone from the server when possible. You want that to be off. And then you want to go down to fetch, and you want this to be set to manually. This means that every time you go into the mail application, it will reload your emails and you'll see all your new emails. But if you had this set to automatically or at one of these certain time intervals right here, it would, fetch for the email in the background and, load that email into your mail application. And you don't want that happening because, once again, we want to try to limit the amount of things going on in the background without us, actually doing them, so that you can save battery life. So I would definitely recommend setting fetch to manual and of course push to off. The next tip for saving battery life has to do with a new setting inside of iOS 14 called precise location. So if we go into our settings and then go down to privacy and then to location services, you want to go down to an application that has access to your location. And we're going to just do Instagram, for example, right here. And you'll see this new toggle here in iOS 14 called precise location. And you want this to be off for most applications, if not all applications that don't absolutely need to know your precise location. So if you don't have precise location set, that means that the application will only know your approximate location and not your exact street address, your actual location. So I would definitely recommend that for things, like I said, like Instagram and for any kind of social media applications. Now, of course, you do want that to be set to on for things like your maps. You want that to know your precise location and things like that. But for applications that don't need it, your phone is just going to use more energy and more data to track down your precise location instead of just using an approximate location. So definitely go in there and change that toggle for some of these applications. Now, speaking of your location, if you go all the way down to the bottom of location services, you'll see system services right here, then go all the way down to the bottom here as well, and you will see significant locations. You want to set this to off unless you use it a lot and you find, great use for this. But for most people, you want significant locations to be turned off, because what this does is it literally just tracks you everywhere you go and keeps a log of that. So a lot of people feel like that's an invasion of privacy, and a lot of people know that that does also drain your battery life, but there are some good uses for it as well. So like Siri suggestions will know that you want to go to a certain place at a certain time based on your history. So like if you use your navigation a lot, that may be beneficial for you. But if you don't really see any kind of notifications like that for what you do throughout the day, you should definitely turn significant locations off. And then also in this same system services section right here, you have all of these toggles that use your location. And I would probably turn off things like location-based alerts, location-based suggestions, and maybe some of these other ones here as well. Now, of course, you do want the setting time zone and sharing your location to be on and things like that. But for some of these, you don't really need them to be on. So especially, like I said, the location-based ones, otherwise your phone is just going to be pulling your location to suggest certain things and give you alerts for certain things. So I would disable those as well to help save some battery life. The next one has to do with sound recognition. So this is also a new feature in iOS 14. So if we go to our settings and then go to accessibility right here, and then down to sound recognition, you want this to be turned off unless you use it or rely on it. So of course, sound recognition is the new iOS 14 feature where your phone can hear and detect certain sounds like a fire alarm or, a cat or a baby crying or, a door knock or a doorbell. You can hear things like that. So maybe for the hearing impaired or for somebody that needs to rely on their phone to hear things like that, it's very, very useful. But if you don't rely on it and you don't absolutely need it, I would definitely turn this off, because once again, your phone is going to be listening in the background all the time for these certain sounds, and that can eat away at your battery life. The next tip is one of the most important tips in this entire video, and one that's going to save probably more battery life than possibly anything else on this list. And that is to limit your notifications. So this is a huge one, and this is one where I see so many people making a mistake when it comes to saving battery life. So if we go into our settings and go to notifications, you guys want to make sure that your notifications are set, pretty much custom for every application, especially applications that send you a lot of notifications. So for example, if I go down to something like an Instagram right here, so this is a good example. So I don't need notifications to show up on my lock screen and in my notification center and as a banner and as a sound. Why do I need all of those things to happen just for me to see, what happened inside of Instagram? No, I have mine set to just badges. That way, when I go back to my home screen and I see my Instagram right here, I can see, okay, I have 2 notifications waiting for me inside of Instagram. I didn't need to know right away, when somebody liked a photo or commented on a photo or messaged me back. So I don't need it to be set to lock screen, notification center, banners. I definitely don't need a sound, when I get an Instagram notification, because sound, using the speakers, that's another thing that will drain the battery as well over time if you keep getting sounds and, vibrations, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But you definitely want to set, for like something like Instagram or social media, I would highly recommend doing just badges and nothing else. Now, of course, this does not apply to something like messages, because of course, messages, that is something where you'll want to know right away when you get a notification. You'll want to hear a sound and you'll want to respond, right away. So obviously for messages, you want everything to be enabled just so that when you get that notification. But for things like games, like even games and things like Reddit, when you'll get these random offers from something like, I don't know, like Uber or Uber Eats, you'll get these random offers and these random pop-ups that you may think nothing of, but over time, if you get one of those every day or a couple times a week, that's going to add up to, draining your battery a little bit each day, especially if you have multiple applications that do that every single day. That's going to add up and drain your battery. So I would definitely go in here and turn off notifications for things like games, things like, Uber Eats or something like that if you don't use it. So I would just go in here and customize these notifications to your liking. And then as I mentioned in that last tip, you guys want to go into your settings and go to sounds and haptics, and you want to make sure that vibrate is turned off, especially for vibrate on ring. Now vibrate on silent, I can kind of make a case for, even though I would never turn vibrate on in general, just because that is one of the, most age-old things that is known to drain battery life and just hurt your battery in general. So I always keep vibration off. I always recommend turning vibration off. But if you need vibration, if you absolutely have to have vibration, only do it on silent. You don't need it when your phone rings, especially. But I would recommend having both of those off. And then also for your ringer, I would try to set that below 50% if possible, just because, like I said, the more your speakers are turned up, and it's the same with music as well. You don't want your speakers to be turned up super loud and be blaring out your notification sound or your notification song, even if you set a custom notification sound. So I would definitely go ahead and turn your ringer and alerts to 50% or lower and just turn vibrations off. Now, speaking of notifications, if you guys want to see where the most notifications are coming from on your device, you need to go to your settings and go to screen time right here, and then scroll down until you see all activity right here, and then go down to the bottom and you will see notifications right here. And this will show you how many notifications you get, a daily average of how many notifications you get per day from these applications, and that's over the past week. So you can see here I got a lot of notifications from Spark, so that will tell me that, okay, I need to go into my Spark notification settings and maybe disable that if I don't care about that application. So like for example, me for news, I don't care about getting news notifications at all. So I can go in here and just turn off everything like this and turn off sounds. Maybe I only want a badge, or maybe I don't want notifications at all from the news application. I could just go ahead and do that right there. So especially for Spark as well, this is like for email, I maybe only need a badge as well. I don't need to know in my notification center on my lock screen, and I definitely don't need a sound for when I get that new email. So you could change all those here in screen time as well. Now, after you do that and after you've monitored, what is using or what is sending you the most notifications, you want to go ahead and disable screen time after you do that, unless you use screen time a lot. So if you use it like with your family and you're tracking, maybe your kids' screen time as well, then obviously leave this enabled. But if you don't use screen time at all, you want to go ahead and turn this off as well, because this will also eat away at your battery life just because it's tracking everything you do on your phone. And this will, like I said, eat up at your battery life as you continue using it. Another new feature in iOS 14 is called back tap. So if we go to our settings and go to accessibility and then down to touch and then down to back tap, you want to disable back tap unless you use it a lot or unless you don't get false triggers like me. So I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I will accidentally trigger the double or triple tap feature here with back tap. And like just yesterday, for example, I accidentally triple tapped when I put it in my phone. And for some reason, the phone thought, I tapped 3 times on the back of my phone, even though it was just in my pocket. And it triggered the SMD, the social media downloader shortcut. And it started downloading something like a picture from Instagram. And I didn't want that, but it was in my pocket doing that. And of course, that will eat away at your battery life. Now, this is not a major thing. It's not going to save you, an hour of battery life or anything like that. But it is one thing to consider. So if you don't use back tap a lot, I would consider, disabling this and then re-enabling it when you think you're going to use it, from time to time. So just one thing to consider there with the back tap feature. Now, the next tip is to use an ad blocker for Safari. So I cannot tell you guys how many annoying ads are on websites right now, which I probably don't even have to tell you. You guys probably know, but these ads on websites are getting ridiculous now, and they're very heavy. They contain a lot of JavaScript, and they're just very heavy on your device, and some of them will pull your location and things like that. So you want to have a content blocker like AdBlock or AdGuard. This is the one I would recommend, and this is the one I have installed. It's just simply called AdBlock. And if we go into our settings and then go down to Safari, which is right here, and then we go down to content blockers right here, you can see that I have ad block turned on, and that way I do not see any ads in Safari. And that way my browsing experience is not just better on the eyes and easier, and I don't have pop-ups to deal with and things like that, but also it doesn't drain my battery as much. The next tip has to do with your display. So if we go to our settings and go to display and brightness, and then scroll down, I want you guys to turn off raise to wake. This is one of those features that will definitely eat away at your battery life accidentally. So when you have raise to wake on, basically when you raise your phone up like this, as you can see, it will turn on every time. And sometimes, just because you raise your phone up doesn't necessarily mean you want to get on your phone. That happened to me multiple times when this feature was new. I tested it out, I had it on, and I found that it happened a lot of times. I'd pick my phone up like that and I wouldn't actually want it to turn on. So you want to turn raise to wake off. That way your phone display does not just constantly turn on multiple times throughout the day. And then also right above it, we have auto lock. And this is another feature that is very controversial. I've had a lot of different opinions than most people. And I would say to either have this set to never or 5 minutes. And the reason for that is because me personally, I almost never forget to turn my screen off, and I find it very annoying when my screen dims. It gets dim when I'm reading an article because it's been 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes even, and it gets dim and then it locks automatically when I was still reading or still, just getting back to my phone. So I like to keep it on 5 minutes or never. Now, one downside, of course, to having it on never is that maybe if you had like a long night and you're in bed and you fall asleep with your phone on, then you'll probably wake up with, low battery or a dead phone. So that is reason to do 5 minutes. But I personally almost never forget to lock my phone, so I have mine set to never. But I would recommend 5 minutes or never there for the auto lock. So the next tip is not iOS based, it's more daily usage based. So as you guys know, inside of iPhones are lithium ion batteries. And what is the biggest enemy of a lithium ion battery? That's right, it's heat. It's extreme heat. So you want to keep your iPhone away from heat as much as possible. So if you're going to a beach, you want to make sure that your phone is, inside of a towel, inside of a bag or something like that. You don't want it to just be sitting there, in the sun with the sun just, glaring right on it and your phone getting extremely hot. And, you're getting that pop-up saying your phone is too hot to use. That's one of the worst notifications you could see on your phone, because that means that your battery is extremely hot, and that means it's going to degrade a lot faster than any other iPhone that's been in, good temperatures. And it's not just heat either. You want to make sure it's not in extreme cold either. So if you're up north, keep it in a jacket, or, keep it in, something warm. Don't have it sitting in the snow and, making a snowman and you just have it sitting in the snow. Like, that's not good for the battery life. But heat is the main thing that you want to keep lithium ion batteries away from. And that not only has to do with the temperature outside, but also how you use your phone as well. So that's why I would also limit your iPhone usage while you're charging your phone. So while you're charging your phone, I would try to use it as little as possible. Now, yes, it is perfectly fine to use your iPhone while it's charging, but you don't want to do it all the time, and definitely don't do it for long periods of time, because you will notice while you're using it that your phone is getting pretty hot on the back and probably on the sides as well. And that, of course, is, once again, the biggest enemy for lithium-ion batteries, because it will degrade faster over time. And not to mention that your phone charges slower when you're using it while it's charging. So I would just overall try to limit your usage while your phone is charging, and maybe just wait until it's charged up to a certain level, then unplug it, and then, start using your phone. But try not to use it a ton while it's on the charger. Now, going back to the software-based tips, if we go into our settings and go to accessibility, and then to motion, and then reduce motion, you may want to consider turning reduce motion on. And you can see there it says reduce the motion of the user interface, including the parallax effect of icons. So of course, less motion means less stress on the CPU, and that of course means less stress on the battery. So reduce motion will help your battery life here as well. Now, one of our favorite iOS features is AirDrop, but you don't always need AirDrop to be turned on. So I would recommend turning AirDrop off until it comes to a point where somebody is trying to send you something, or you're trying to send somebody something. Otherwise, it's just always running in the background. And especially if you have it set to everyone, that means that, especially if you're in an airport and you're on an airplane or something like that, that maybe somebody's bored and they'll send you a photo or something like that when you didn't want it. And enough times of that happening will mean less battery life. So I would just turn AirDrop off, not only because it's just always running in the background and that alone can hurt your battery life, but also because you may get unsolicited or just unwanted AirDrop files sent to you when you're out and about. So if we head back into our settings and then go down to music right here, and then go down to EQ, you want your EQ to be turned off. Now, this is another one of those features that is not going to make a massive difference at all on your battery life, but it's just another little tip to add in there. You don't want to have an additional layer of equalization over your music, because first of all, it doesn't really make a huge difference. And second of all, that can hurt your battery life, just because, the system has to do one more process to add this layer of EQ on to the music. So I would recommend turning the EQ off entirely. And to me personally, the EQ, the overall sound sounds better when the EQ is off anyways. And then also inside of the music settings right here, you will see a section called motion, and you can see it says animated cover art will automatically play. I would recommend turning this off unless you just really have a fascination. You really like the look of moving cover art inside of the music application. And basically what that is if you go into music, and it's things like this. So certain playlists will have animated cover arts for that playlist or for that album. And it's not really beneficial at all to see. I mean, it could be pretty cool, but in terms of, draining battery life, it could hurt your battery life if you are in music and you pass through a lot of those animated cover art. So I would recommend turning that off unless you just really like the look of those animated covers. Now, speaking of music, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier as well, but you don't want to play music at super high levels on your iPhone. So you don't want to be using those speakers to their full extent. You don't want to be maxing out the volume or really even going that loud with the speakers on your phone. You're much better off listening to music through AirPods or connecting it to a Bluetooth speaker or a HomePod or something like that. You will save a lot more battery life playing music through headphones or a third party than playing the music through your speakers right here, especially if it's louder. The louder it is, the worse it is on your battery life, because of course that means the harder your iPhone has to work and the harder your speakers have to work in the background. The next tip is to use Wi-Fi as much as possible. So Wi-Fi uses far less battery life than LTE or just using your cell signal. So anytime you're at home or anytime you're at a friend's house or anytime you're somewhere where you have a secure Wi-Fi network, I would definitely connect to the Wi-Fi network instead of using LTE, just because you will save battery life, a good amount of battery life, by using Wi-Fi over cell signal. Now, speaking of signal, if you guys ever lose signal or you just have weak signal, go ahead and turn airplane mode on. This is one of the oldest tricks in the book to save battery life, but turning airplane mode on can help a lot with saving battery life, especially when you have no signal, or when you're in an airplane, of course. So obviously your phone, when you have no signal, it's going to constantly be looking for a new cell tower to connect to, and it's going to be using a lot of processes in the background to try to figure out where that cell tower is and to connect to that cell tower to give you signal on your phone. So that's going to take a lot of energy and a lot of battery life, and you don't want that. So that's another reason why in airplanes you should use airplane mode. That way your phone is not always searching for something to connect to and using energy in the background. So turning airplane mode on to save battery life is one of the oldest tricks in the book, but one that's even older than that, but one that people still don't listen to or still don't know about, is quitting out of applications, force closing out of applications. This is one of the worst things that you could do on your iPhone and iOS 14. You do not want to force close out of applications. It literally has the opposite effect of what you think, because your phone is just using more CPU power the next time you open that application up instead of just pulling it from the background. So do not force quit out of applications. I feel like I say this all the time to people in real life and in my videos. For years I've been saying it. Just don't do it. Do not force close applications. I know if you have OCD, it could be hard, but don't do it because it will drain your battery life, no doubt about it. The next tip is to always use an Apple charging block. So use the one that came with your iPhone or iPad, and also always use an Apple cable or an MFI certified cable. So you want to make sure that you're always using the stuff straight from Apple or something that is certified. Now, you don't want to go into like a gas station and get a little $3 cable. Even if it says it's certified, I just simply would not trust those. I would have a hard time buying those because of course it will heat your phone up, it will degrade your battery life, and you really never know if you can trust those. I mean, we've seen those explosion videos and things like that. I'm not saying your phone's gonna explode, but I'm just saying, don't buy a cheap cable. Do not buy it. Use the one from Apple or get one off Amazon that is MFI certified from a trustworthy company. Now, speaking of charging, you guys also want to make sure that you charge your phone whenever you can. You want to keep your phone around 50 or maybe even 60 to 80% all day long if possible. So if your phone is at, like 60, 70%, charge it up. If you're near a charger, there's no reason not to be charging your phone. I mean, it's not like you can just overcharge your phone. So I would charge your phone anytime you can. Anytime you're around a charger, plug it in. You're going to thank yourself later, and you're going to wish you did if you're running low on battery later on down the road. And then also inside of settings, battery health, you want to make sure that optimized battery charging is turned on. This of course has been around for a while, but you can see there it says to reduce battery aging, iPhone learns from your daily charging routine, so it can wait to finish charging past 80% until you need to use it. So this has improved in iOS 14, and I would definitely recommend having this on. Now, going back to the iPhone for the next tip, you guys want to make sure that you always update your applications inside of the App Store. So if you go to your settings and then click on your little name right there, and then go to updates right here, you want to make sure that your applications are always being updated. Now, also if you go into your settings and then go down to App Store right here, you want to make sure that app updates are set for automatic downloads. That way, when you plug your phone in at night, or just when you plug your phone in general, they will start automatically downloading those updates, because of course applications can have bugs, they can cause battery drain, and you just want to keep them up to date. You never want to have like 100 updates sitting here waiting, because first of all, that's just annoying for the OCD, and that's a lot of time that you're going to be spending installing these applications, but also because some of these applications that you may use every day could have bugs in them that caused battery drain, over the past month of you using it because you just didn't install the new updates. And it's not just applications, you also want to make sure that your software is up to date as well. So if you go into your settings, general software update, you want to make sure that you are on the latest version at all times, just because once again, there are battery drain issues in certain versions, and you may need to update your phone to fix that battery issue. Now, the next tip is one of my favorites because it has to do with analyzing a graph and trying to figure out what caused the most battery drain on your phone. So if you go to your settings and go to battery right here, as you guys know, we do have the battery chart right here, and this gives you a great indication as to what is using all of your battery life. So if we go to just say right here, so I can see here from, what time is this? 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. that settings was using the most of my battery life. So maybe I want to cut down on settings and not going in there as much. Now, obviously, this isn't a real use case. You're going to have like a social media app or TikTok or something like that right there. And you'll see, wow, I spend a lot of time in this application and this is using a lot of my battery life. And, maybe, 2 days down the road, you'll remember that and be like, I'm running low on battery life. Maybe I shouldn't be on TikTok right now. I'll wait until, I don't need my battery as bad. So just analyze the graph here inside of your battery settings. It can be very beneficial if you know which applications are draining your battery life, or not even necessarily draining, just using a lot of your battery life. It's good to know that. And then the final tip is to simply make sure that you do not need a new battery. So if you go into your settings, battery health, you want to look at your maximum capacity right there. And if it's below maybe like 80%, you probably need to get your battery replaced. So if it's anywhere from like 80 to 100, you're probably fine, unless you just have major, battery drain issues. But for most people, if it's below 80%, that would be when I would consider getting a new battery, because you can follow all these tips in this list and it still won't help you because your battery is simply too degraded. It's simply too, can't hold as good of a charge as it used to. So you're not going to really see a huge benefit from using all these tips and tricks in this video. So yeah, guys, there you have it. Those are over 30 tips and tricks for getting the most out of your battery life and saving battery life here in iOS 14. Hope you guys found this useful. If you did, I would appreciate if you gave this video a thumbs up, and also make sure you guys share any comments below about any of these tips. And also, if you have additional tips to share, let me know down in the comments below. I'm sure I don't know every single thing, so you guys may be able to teach me something down there as well. So let me know what's helped you save the most battery life here on iOS 14. And of course, if you guys are not subscribed already, make sure you subscribe. I have a lot of iOS 14 content on the channel and a lot more to come that will help you get the most out of your device on iOS 14. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.